Yeah, Lori.
Yeah, so um, I'm outdoors. I've
Mm-hmm.
got a bad back, and this chair outside seems to be the best one to give me the kind of support I need versus everything in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I sat down, the chainsaw started a couple of houses away.
Mm.
And I thought, well, you could move inside. And I thought, no, your back doesn't like it in there. And then I
Mm-hmm.
remembered your prisoners. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, the prisoners can do it with all the clanging. So let me
Mm-hmm.
just sit here. And I was never annoyed by the chainsaw. I was never annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
It just was the noise that I was listening to, and it came and went. There's an
Mm-hmm.
expression I don't like everything happens for a reason, but I love everything happens for an opportunity. That's the expression I like.
Nice.
So here it was, the chainsaw, and I just sort of meditated listening to the chainsaw. There were even two chainsaws making harmony at one point. That was kind of cool.
What
And
could be what could be better than a chainsaw? Two chainsaws.
and then it would stop.
Right.
And then I would hear the birds chirping and the dog barking and the car driving by, and then it would start up again.
Right.
And I was detached, which the reason I'm really kind of marveling over this is yesterday during the meditation, I had what I call a TF convo before the meditation. That's a touchy feely conversation with a friend.
Uh-huh.
And it left me rattled. And so during the meditation, it was like my thoughts were glued to me. My thoughts were like a hair shirt. I couldn't detach from them. I couldn't get them. I couldn't observe them. They were just a part of who I was. It was really rough
Mm-hmm.
yesterday. But I thought with the chainsaw and the birds, I thought if I could detach like I did from the chainsaw from things that happen with people that are sometimes a little difficult to discuss, but stay detached enough from it to kind of see it and be a witness to it instead of being completely absorbed in it. It just seemed like a great metaphor today, the chainsaw and the birds, because that's life. There's chainsaws and birds.
That's right. That's right. And we don't get to choose. And I mean you're so right to cite, what I've been lucky enough to experience teaching with prisoners, um, that they have what Pema Chodron calls the wisdom of no escape. you know, uh, they've had I mean, easy for me to say because I get to visit the prison and then go home and sleep in a comfy bed, right? But having acknowledged that, um, it's an incredible a prison is an incredible opportunity to practice because you can't change your external environment. You can't, at any moment, if any corrections officer says to you, okay, face down on the ground, you have to do it. And, you've got all kinds of, so, and there's no place quiet to practice. So you just have to abandon all hope of, okay, I'll just wait till the chainsaw stops. Or, in this case, I'll just wait till all the shouting and the loud radios and everything stop because they don't stop. In a sense, it's horrible, but it's, as you say, I love what you said. Everything is an opportunity, right? If we're practitioners, right, everything becomes grist for the mill. Everything is an opportunity to practice, and in particular, the things that we thought, oh no, this is beyond the scope of practice. This is beyond the pale. This is an interruption of practice, and it's especially the things that seem like an interruption of what is practice. The practice is resting in boundless beingness, which is boundlessly okay. Okay, how can I rest in okay? And we know that as an experience. It's not an attitude. It's not a philosophy, right? And this is the problem that people have when they try to make everything's okay on the level of attitude. I'm just gonna, concoct a an attitude or a philosophy of things being okay, and then when something comes along that challenges that too with too much difficulty, they it falls apart. I remember when I lived in New Jersey, with my late first wife, when we were raising our kids. We lived in this big, huge 14 room, 3 floor Victorian cuckoo clock, uh, steamboat mansion, which because of some changing demographics, we'd been able to buy this for a song. We bought it in 1983 for I think $85,000. But to pay our mortgage, we fixed up the third floor as an apartment. We would always rent it out. And there was this young couple living there, and this one, the girl, the wife, um, belonged to a large Catholic family. She had a lot of brothers and sisters, and she went to church or mass or something every Sunday, and was great with it. And she had one brother, I think it was her youngest brother, who was a star athlete senior year in high school, um, and had all these offers for athletic scholarships, and all he had to do was take his SAT, and he had this golden future ahead of him. He was on his way to take his SAT with a friend of his was driving the car, and the friend went too fast on one of these mountain roads we have in that area, wrapped the car around a telephone pole, and the passenger, this girl's brother, was paralyzed from the neck down. Horrible, horrible. Of course, that's huge challenge. Would be a huge challenge to everyone, or almost everyone. But it was very interesting what she said to me about it. She said, "I feel like I can't go to church anymore." She said, "I don't understand how God could allow this to happen to my brother." Right. Now, of course, I said some nice, benign, comforting things. But I also had an unexpressed thought. And the thought was, um, did you ever read a newspaper? Because every day a newspaper is full of things like this happening. And it's just kind of interesting that we're okay with God letting this stuff happen to people we don't know, right? Because and that's human, of course, that's human. But it remains pretty abstract for us. Um, and what one would hope is that someone who is um, got a religious orientation toward communing with the infinite okayness of life, in this case under the name of God or something, would have at least enough of an experiential dimension of it. That when that it's not just understanding, it's not just, you sing some nice hymns and get a little bit of a warm feeling and go home, right? And I'm convinced there's people who have that. There's some people, maybe it's your grandma when she takes the communion, when she takes that wafer, drinks that wine, she just, that's her meditation. She just transcends. I mean, every religion, if you look at it deeply, it's got those mechanisms for transcendence, but they often get lost. Is this making sense? Yeah, yeah. But one thing I want to point out, just one little tweak in the language that you're using there. Um, when this word detach, like I was able to detach from the chainsaw. If only I could detach in that same way from situations with people. Um, this word detach is a little bit of a loaded term. Can you see what the problem with that is, Lori? No. Okay. Um, well, first of all, it's a verb, right? Detach is a verb, so it implies something that we have to do. Now, was there something that you had to do in order to be okay with the chainsaws there?
No,
Mm,
I was just listening, and there it was, and it didn't bother me.
exactly, exactly. So you were not doing a thing called detaching which then you would hope to be able, like, you were not exercising some skill of detaching, which then, hopefully you would be able to transfer that skill and apply it in these interpersonal situations. Well, you were there, right? You were settled into the natural mirror like nature of your, to use the metaphor we were using in today's meditation, right? You're settled into right. A mirror never is stained by the colors that dance on its surface. The mirror does not have to try to detach,
Okay. Well,
right?
what about listening and observing? Aren't those verbs too?
Yeah, yeah, and that's the next word you use that I I want to tackle. Okay, do you have to listen to the chainsaws?
No, there's nothing to be done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. The less manipulation, the better. The best is no manipulation. Okay, when you're sitting at a sidewalk cafe, we've got all these here in Santa Monica now. They've got all those lovely, since quarantine started, all the restaurants have got those little, sidewalk. I don't know what you call those little things. They're really lovely, and they've made them permanent now. Um, so you can be sitting there and you're enjoying your beverage and your piece of pie and having a lovely conversation with your friend. All these conversations are going on around you. There's the traffic coming down on Main Street, and you're not trying to detach from the other conversations or from the sound of the traffic. Um, you're not trying to make them stop, right? Right. Now, at first, you might, right? I mean, this would be the equivalent. This is what most people do when they first approach meditation, and which, with the natural approach that we use, we pull that rug out from under them as quickly as possible. Oh, I have to make all these people. Why are they so rude? They're making all these conversations. Why is all this big blue bus going down the main street here? I have to blank it out and la 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 la. And of course, that's counterproductive.
Mhm.
What do? Just settle into your nice conversation, settle into the experience of the pie, and it's there in the background, and it's fine, right? In one word, ignore it. But ignore doesn't mean, oh, I got to ignore this, right? That's not ignoring. That's that
But I
attitude.
wasn't, but with the chainsaw, I was kind of, the chainsaw and I were one. I mean, I was all about the chainsaw, kind of just not minding it, and hearing it. And um, I don't know what that means, but
Yeah, that can excuse me. Yeah, that can seem like that sometimes. Um, I mean, what can happen is, so first you're settled down into the true nature of yourself, which is beingness, which is boundless. You settle down out of the little lorry wave into the being ocean, right? And what we do is all the other waves on the surface, they're there somewhere in the background. That's the traffic noise. That's the chainsaw. That's the whatever. Okay, and we're just enjoying being settled into the silent depths of our oceanic nature, not worrying about uh, the, the chainsaw wave or the lorry wave or any other wave. Okay, now when we get sufficiently settled like that, there's another thing that can happen, which in a way is more profound. But it has to happen, like all of this, it has to happen on its own, spontaneously in its own time. This other thing that can happen is, okay, so now we're settled down into our oceanic nature, and now we happen to notice another wave, the chainsaw wave or something, and we're so settled into, we've so deeply settled from our lorry wave into the being wave, that then when we put whatever we put our attention on, the chainsaw or whatever else, we settle down into its oceanic nature, the
uh,
silent beingness, which is the core of its reality, just as it is hours. And guess what? There's a bunch of waves, but how many oceans are there? Right? So this is why it makes perfect sense that you say, oh, it's like the chainsaw and I were one. You're one on that. I mean, on the surface, that's absurd. That's an absurd statement, right? I'm a human. I'm made out of flesh and blood and all that. A chainsaw is, right? And I'm over here. It's over there. But on the level of beingness, it makes perfect sense. There can only be one. And more, what happens in our life is not just in meditation, but walking around. Yeah, you're. It's the old joke about the Dalai Lama goes to the ball game and the hot dog vendor comes by and he says, "Make me one with everything." And by the way, then the vendor hands him the hot dog. The Dalai Lama hands him a 20, and the vendor starts to walk away. And the Dalai Lama says, "Hey, where's my change?" And the vendor says, "Ah, change must come from within." Sorry, couldn't resist.
I want to write this down. Oh my God.
This will be up on YouTube forever to our eternal embarrassment. Um, so, um, so, so more and more, just think of how interesting and how lovely and how much fun life will be. Life is becoming when you're walking around and your relationship with everything and everyone is the relationship that you glimpse for a moment with the chainsaw.
That's just too cool.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what this is called? This is called love.
Ooh, yes.
Yes, yes. Because love is not just this some superficial emotion that we think we can have in very rare situations, and it's very delicate and fragile. And I had it in this relationship, but then that relationship went south, and but. Love is, as Rupert Spira is always pointing out, it's non-separateness. That's simple.
Wow.
Non-separateness. It's more intimate than the closest intimacy. And
Yeah.
and yeah, and now you go back to all the wonderful statements made by all the Jesus and the other sages. When Jesus says, "Love one another as I have loved you," and there's something so beautiful about that, so moving that we're inspired by it. But then people try to do it on the level of just some emotion, and you can't do it.
Hmm.
Because on the level of emotion, on the level of separate waves. The way I feel about, this person, and that is not going to be the same way I feel about my grandchildren or the same way I feel about my wife, right? But on the level of beingness, this much more profound level, yeah, yeah, it's so much deeper than any emotion.
I mean, I just have to make a joke. Me and the chainsaw, like
You and
this.
you and the chainsaw, B, BFFs.
Thank you, Dean. That was so huge. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet, you bet. We're lucky. We're so lucky uh, to have, as you say, to have this opportunity to open to that.